Hello, everybody, and welcome to Forever Sports. Rassie Erasmus has been forced to make a late change to the Springbok side to face the Wallabies tomorrow at Ellis Park in the first encounter of the Rugby Championship. Jan-Hendrik Wessels is out, and Boan Venter comes in. A late withdrawal due to a late injury to the young loosehead means that Boan Venter gets another opportunity in the green and gold after making his debut against Georgia in July. And a big opportunity, really, for him, for somebody who probably didn't think that he was going to be involved in the box setup at all. He will now be involved in the biggest test of the box calendar this year so far. And I think very big opportunity for him as well. I think a lot of people were very impressed with what we saw from Boan Venter in that first test, but now he gets a full go at a Tier 1 nation and a big opportunity. If he takes it, I think he puts himself firmly into sort of the box setup for the future. Before you get into it, please do smash the like on the video. Please do subscribe to the channel as well. Right, so we thought we were going to get a change from Rassie Erasmus, to be honest. We thought that, he actually said to us that the Wallabies were going to change the team. Well, basically what he said to us, sorry, let me start that again. What he basically said is that he was potentially going to change the team depending on what the Wallabies did. And if the Wallabies went with a 6-2, he was potentially going to bring in Arcus Neyman onto the bench and go with a 6-2 split themselves. However, it looks like they have resisted the temptation of doing that, but they've had to make another change. As a result, this is what the side looks like tomorrow. And it's not a massive difference with regards to the actual team itself, but I do think it's quite a big difference in terms of the profile of player that is coming on in the second half versus what we had in Jan-Hendrik Wessels. Jan-Hendrik Wessels, very young player, I think very much a project player. I think his scrummaging is still something he needs to work on quite a lot, that he's working very hard on, and we're definitely seeing a lot of improvement. I think a year ago, he wasn't good enough for me to be an international level sort of prop, test match level prop from a scrummaging point of view. What we do get though in Jan-Hendrik Wessels is energy, pace, power in the loose. He's an incredible player across the park. That's why he's been pushed through so early by Jake White. He's been pushed through so early by Rassie Erasmus. He's a bit of a prodigal son type of thing. You don't really get those often in especially in props. They usually come on a little bit later, but he's so good in the loose. For somebody of his size, he's got a lot of pace around the park. Very good at the breakdown as well, which is probably what makes him more of a natural hooker than a loosehead, but the box very much view him as a loosehead. And I think that he was a perfect type bomb squad type player. Brings a lot of energy on the second half. When you're trying to relentlessly run at a team, for example, he's really good at coming around the corners, grinding them down, having a go at them. So that's kind of what he brings, even if he maybe isn't the best scrummager in the world. And I think that scrummaging is something that you can just see he's been working on it very hard with Don Human, who's going to get him into becoming a world-class scrummager. I have absolutely no doubt whatsoever that we will see him be good enough at scrum time in the future. What we've now got in Boan Venter is, I think, a little bit of the opposite, to be honest. Boan Venter is a very, very good scrummager. Very solid player. And might not sort of... look, I don't think he's bad in the loose at all. I think he's quite physical. But I don't think he's quite... the energy that we sort of bring from Jan-Hendrik Wessels, I don't think we quite get that from Boan Venter. But he's very experienced. I mean, he's 28 years old. He's played many, many years. He's played in the URC, for example. Had a very good URC campaign. Scrummed against some of the best in the world. He's coming on almost 100 caps for Edinburgh. So he's been playing in the URC for a while now. Before that, obviously, he was at the Cheetahs. But I think that he's really coming into his own. And we've seen sort of the improvement we've seen from Boan Venter just in the last 6 months has been immense. And we're talking about a player who probably wasn't in the box setup, even in the box minds maybe a year ago. Maybe they were tracking him, but I don't think really sort of with any great seriousness. All of a sudden starts putting in massive performances from Edinburgh, starts almost sort of starting to break the door down, inverted commas. And I think that, he really sort of put himself on the radar. Then there was quite a fortuitous couple of injuries. Took for example, out. At the moment, Thomas Toy currently being rested. And all of a sudden, Boan Venter gets thrown a bit of a lifeline. And comes into the squad, has a very good game against Georgia, stays in the squad. I think that in itself was quite interesting. Stays in the squad due to the fact that they wanted to try and use this as a rest period for Thomas du Toit, as per some of the negotiations with Bath. But then all of a sudden, Jan-Hendrik Wessels gets injured, and from basically being a player sort of called in for cover, given an opportunity against Georgia, kind of in and around the squad as cover, now he's going to play against the Wallabies, and he's going to come out of the second half. And this is our first test against the Tier 1 nation. This is definitely our biggest test so far this year. So it's amazing how, luck just sort of sometimes plays in your way. And I think that we've seen opportunities for players like this. Kane and Moody, for example, got a similar opportunity. A whole bunch of wings get injured. They take a chance on Kane and Moody. They start him in Australia. 5 minutes later, he scored a debut try. A year later, he's in the World Cup squad. He wins the World Cup. And now he's a permanent fixture in that World Cup, or in that box squad. Boan Venter has got that opportunity. He's got that sort of framework where all of a sudden he's been drafted in. He's been given a chance against a tier 1 side. And if he has a really, really good game tomorrow, then I think he puts himself in the mix. I think he generally makes himself a bit of a long-term option. And we really need to up our prop stocks. We're desperately trying to replace Steven Kitshoff at the end of the day. That was somebody we weren't planning on having to try and replace this year. And Ntlabakanye then got injured. And it's amazing how one player's misfortunes is another player's fortunes, because this should have been Ntlabakany's opportunity. As soon as Steven Kitshoff retired, they would have said, right, we've got to put a lot of investment into Tooks, as they call him, and get him game time and make sure that he sort of is ready potentially for the next World Cup. Then, unfortunately for him, he gets injured. Asenathi, missing lots of games recently, also would have been somebody that would have said, right, well, we've already got to put a lot of effort into him, because we're trying to find out the backup ready for Oxen Chair and sort of the bomb squad option, which has been Asenathi in the last year. But those two players would have been, your two looses you would have wanted to really work with, and then would have wanted to have a Jan-Hendrik Wessels as an option in around the squad, but maybe not necessarily playing against an All Blacks, an Ireland, a France, for example. Now, with those two injuries, you've had to sort of really up Jan-Hendrik Wessels' involvement, and then you've had to draft in a Boan Venter. So Boan Venter's got a really big opportunity, and I won't say it's like now or never, because, you want to have this opportunity again, but it's a golden opportunity at a time where we're looking at loose heads. And I think it's up for grabs, to be honest. I don't think that necessarily that, Gerard Stenenkamp and took a Boan Venter, Jan-Hendrik Wessels. I think Gerard Stenenkamp is probably quite comfortably ahead of the rest. But after that, I think it's a bit of a dogfight, to be honest, for places potentially in the World Cup squad come 2027. So Boan Venter needs to really use the opportunity and have a go. If he has a strong game tomorrow, a strong showing maybe next week as well, depending on whatever the injury for Jan-Hendrik Wessels is. If it is something serious, they will probably bring him back. Thomas du Toit, they've always said they can call upon him if there are injuries in terms of him resting. But the idea is to try not to use him. So Boan Venter could very well get 2 games in a row here. And a strong 2 games suddenly becomes hard to drop. And that's what you've got to make yourself when you play and get these opportunities. You've got to try and play yourself into not being dropped or being able to be dropped. Because if you can do that, stay around the fringes, then all of a sudden you can find yourself in the World Cup squad. You can find yourself on the field at the World Cup. So what do you think of the changes? What do you think the differences are? And how excited you see Boan Venter in the lineup tomorrow? Let me know down in the comments below. Smash a like on the video. Subscribe to the channel as well. Thank you very much for watching. My name is Steve. I'll chat to you soon.